Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. And welcome to another I Watch 3 vlog. This one I am super excited for. And yes, don't worry, you are on the action cam as I always do with these vlogs. So, what we're gonna look at in this vlog is, for the first time ever, I will be watching some James Bond films. So, of course, it's an I Watch 3 vlog, so we're gonna watch the first 3 films in the James Bond series. If you missed my whole announcement video or my kickoff video, definitely go check that out, just to give you an idea of what I'm doing here. But I've never seen a James Bond film before, so I am going to correct that in this vlog. Hopefully this doesn't take me too long, because that kickoff video was almost a month ago now, so I'm a little bit behind, but I'm trying to get through about 9 films, I believe it is, in this summer here, so about 3 months. So I guess that's pretty much it. I don't need to waste any more time here. You know what we're doing, so let's get to it. Let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right in to another vlog, this time watching my first ever James Bond films. Alright guys, it is official. I have watched my first James Bond film. It only took me, how old am I? I'm gonna be 38 in like 2 weeks, so only took me almost 38 years to get to it, but here we are. And I think so backtrack a little bit here. I think there are a few reasons why it took me so long, because I announced Summer of Bond now about 3 weeks ago, which is insane to think how fast time flies, but in my head, I've built up watching the first James Bond film so much that it felt like it was an event. And when it's an event, it's like everything has to be perfect. And it's never going to be that way in real life for me. It's not going to be perfect. And so last night I finally said, forget it. Like, I'm just putting this movie in and I'm going to watch it. So finally I did. And I'm so glad I did. The other reason I think it took me so long to get to this is, frankly, after making that announcement, it was really well received. And I was nervous that it might have the same reaction I did, or I might have the same reaction I did as when I first watched Superman, the original Superman film. I don't love that movie. I watched it only for the first time a number of years ago, maybe, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now, 2, 3, whatever it was. And it's a good film. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it like I thought I was going to. And so that was a little bit of a disappointment. And so I was just like concerned, I guess, that I might have the same reaction with the whatever James Bond movie I ended up watching first. But fortunately, that's not the case here. I thoroughly enjoyed this. So right from the get-go, I had no idea that the James Bond theme was actually called the James Bond theme. I know it from GoldenEye. And at least in the Daniel Craig films, I know there's always a song that is associated with it. Like Adele did one of the movies. That was the theme for that song. And so I thought each film had its own thing, but obviously that's not the case. I know that now. And I'm guessing that this James Bond theme is going to play throughout the entire series, which is awesome, because right from the beginning, I was pulled in because I had that connection with it. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And then from there, it jumps into like this super disco 60s music. And I was like, what is going on? But then it gets right back into like the James Bond theme and what I would have expected, or what I expect from James Bond, I guess. So the intro was pretty cool because it just pulled me right in. Right from there, and I have to say it, I think that the introduction to James Bond's character is like the coolest introduction ever. It was amazing. We have, I assume they're playing Baccarat because that's what they played in Casino Royale.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr...
Bond. James Bond.
It was just perfect. I loved it. And I instantly fell in love with James Bond. He was just such a cool character, which like, it was awesome. Everybody knows this, right? Like, this is what he's known for over the years, but really seeing it right from the get-go was just incredible for me. And that feeling of, oh wow, this is right from the first film, it really lasted throughout the entire film. Now, I know this is based on the 6th book in the James Bond series, even though it is the first movie. And so all of these things are likely established already, but it was still really cool to see them in the film. Like, shaken, not stirred is in there. The way he says his name, Bond, James Bond, that's in there. You get the Bond girls. You get, all those things that you'd associate with James Bond. Many of them, or at least I noticed a number of them in this film. And so I thought that was awesome that those all were there right from the get-go. Sticking with the character of Bond a little bit. So, I really enjoyed the character when I read it in Casino Royale, but seeing Sean Connery embody James Bond, it is just perfect. The way he is such a ladies' man, and it's just so cool to see. It is very of its time, the way he handles things, and I totally understand that, but it just works so well in this world that has been built for this character. At one point, he ends up throwing his hat. It's right at the beginning of the film. He throws his hat, and it lands perfectly on the coat rack.
Well, sit his there, will you?
It was just the coolest thing ever to me, and I don't know why. I just think it was perfect. Because again, it's just establishing this character as this, too cool for school embodiment, and it's just awesome. Almost larger than life. There's one point where he knows he's being set up. He knows that he's, there's a chance that he's going to get killed or kidnapped or whatever. He doesn't care. He's still gonna go, have his fun with this woman before all of that happens. It's awesome. I loved that aspect of it. Just how he is this lady killer. And then, talking about the Bond girls. Always heard about the Bond girls over the years, right? But seeing our first real Bond girl, Honey Rider, what a cool name, first off. And I instantly loved her. She is just breathtakingly beautiful. Her character is a perfect foil against James Bond. There was such great chemistry between the two. I loved the way that all played out. And at one point, he literally says, I'm not going to be rescued. I'm just going to, have fun with this lady instead. And he throws a rope in the sea. It's hilarious how his number one priority is the women, and then it's survival. And so I just thought that was so fun to see how it actually played out, on film as opposed to in the book. And so I loved the character of James Bond, and Sean Connery is just perfect as Bond. I'm only one film in, and I already don't know how I'm going to handle a different actor playing James Bond, but I cannot wait to see what they do with the role. This is a film where I feel that the characters really overtake the story. So the story with this one is that Bond is sent to Jamaica because one of his coworkers, essentially another MI6 operative, is murdered. And so he's sent there to figure out what's going on. And of course, that's where we eventually run into our titular Dr. No. And, the story's fine. It is what it is. It gets us from point A to point B. And I think it does a fine job. It's interesting. But really, what I wanted to see was what Bond was going to do next. You get a lot of the things that I thought of heading into this as kind of stereotypical Bond, right? You get the beautiful women. You get I guess you don't really get too many of the gadgets in this one. A little bit maybe with the Geiger reader, but not too much in this one. That'll probably progress as we go. You get the nice cars. You get you get a handful of car chases. And then, you just get a little bit of action in there as well. And so it really felt like what I expected a James Bond film to feel like, where it's more about this character of James Bond, more so than kind of, the plot itself. And so that's not necessarily a dig on the film. It's just something I noticed as I was going through it. I cared more about the characters than I did about the plot of the movie. But the plot is serviceable. I wanted to know how this main villain was going to be introduced. And then when he is, it's so interesting because there's nothing menacing about his face or his appearance, but then he has these metal, steel, whatever they're made out of hands. And that was fascinating to me.
Usually when a man gets in my way.
I really liked that aspect of it. Does it really play too much into the film? I mean, frankly, not all that much, but again, I didn't care. Like, I just wanted to see how James Bond was going to win in the end, right? That's what mattered to me, and how and if he was going to get the girl. And so that's what really was the driving force behind the film. And I loved that about it. I thought that's exactly what I want from a James Bond movie, even as someone who's never seen one before. So kudos to the screenwriter understanding what aspect of this is the most important. Something else here, and this is not a Blu-ray review, I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but I will say the sound on this was kind of frustrating. So I think it was originally a mono track that was turned into a 5.1 for the Blu-ray on the Bond 50 set, and the standalone Blu-ray also, according to my research. And one review I was reading after watching said that they loved the sound, it was great. And I was thinking, man, like, is something wrong with my sound system? And so I watched it on my, 5.1 surround system as opposed to my Atmos soundbar. And it was still, there are moments in this film, particularly toward the end, where the dialogue is just not mixed very well. It is very quiet. So much so that I ended up turning on subtitles for, maybe just a couple minutes. But it was very noticeable to me. And so that was disappointing. I wish they would have had a mono track on here. They do offer a 2.0 stereo, but I listened to that for a few seconds and it didn't sound good at all. It sounded very tinny, which again, according to the research I was doing, is just kind of a side effect of 1960s filmmaking, but they didn't master it in the same way that the 5.1 was mastered. I feel like if they would have done that with the stereo track, it would have sounded better and been my preferred option to watch this. But the sound effects were so much louder than any of the dialogue. And so that was kind of annoying as I was watching through it. So just something to keep in mind with the Blu-ray. I really hope that this gets a 4K master, but boy, this Blu-ray looked amazing. It looked great. There are a couple moments where it gets dark on the screen. And I noticed that there was I could see like a pattern in the darkness. So that was a little bit jarring. But outside of those, maybe 2 or 3 scenes, I thought this Blu-ray looked amazing. And that's the other thing I didn't talk about is the locales, right? Like these exotic locales. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up here, but this was a movie that I was really not sure if I was going to enjoy. And like I said, I think that's what took me so long to watch it after even announcing that I was going to do the Summer of Bond. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was everything I was hoping a Bond film would be. We got beautiful women, great locales. The picture was stunning looking on the Blu-ray for the most part. You get, James Bond, the PPK is introduced. That was really cool. Also right at the beginning of the film. Just James Bond himself was everything I wanted him to be and more. And I cannot wait to see what else Sean Connery does with that role as we move forward. And the only concern I have now at this point is because so many of the elements I was expecting from a Bond film were already introduced, I'm a little bit concerned that as I watch through these, they might start to feel a little bit samey to me. But I don't know that that's going to be the case or not. But that's just one of the concerns I have as I'm sitting here today, having only watched one of these. But we'll see as we make my way through it. I thought this movie was awesome. Highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Like, this is great. I'm so happy I'm doing this summer, and I cannot wait to watch the next one. I'm ready to move on, but I wanted to film this before I watched the next one so that I didn't forget something or start to mix them up. So, yeah, we'll see what the next one holds. But for now, I am going to give Dr. No from 1962 4 out of 5 stars. This movie is so much fun, and I can't wait to see the next one. But for now, we're going to pause here, and I don't know if I'll do an intro for the next one. I don't know what's going on today or tomorrow, but I'm hoping to watch this next one relatively soon, so let's get at it. Alright, so it is a couple days later. Now, I apologize, the furnace is right there, and it's being very loud, but I'm going to sit in front of my newly designed shelves here, my newly organized shelves. If you can see, this is all horror and sci-fi and fantasy. Basically, it's a genre shelves is what I'm calling them. But this took a ton of work. Previously, this whole side was all my inherited movies, and then this side was just A through Z on movies. Well, it started over here, but whatever. A through Z on DVDs. But now, well, I'm not ready to talk about that. You can see a lot of my DVDs are now there. My standard DVDs. That's a whole thing for another video. But anyway, I wanted to check in. I just got done working. I just put my son down for a nap. And so now I'm going to try to film. So I'm trying to film in bulk at this point right now because I have next week off from work, the entire week, my first full week off in, man, I can't even tell you. I think all year, which is crazy, but I'm so excited for it. Work sucks, as most people would say, I imagine. And so really looking forward to that. And because it's my birthday and my nephew is scheduled to be born. So lots happening next week. So I want to get as much filming done and editing done this week and just get things posted and ready to go. So I filmed a book haul video on my lunch break and the second episode of Shelf Space. You guys probably already seen these by the time this video goes up. I'm hoping that this vlog, I'll be able to get through 2 more James Bond films. So I'm hoping this vlog will go up at that point also. And then I'll probably film a few more haul videos because I have thrift store, eBay, Blu-ray. There's so many things over there to share with you guys. So I'm going to try to get as much bulk filming done as possible in order to get as much time off next week as I possibly can. This takes a lot of time. YouTube takes a lot of time. I always say that I work really 3 jobs. I have my normal day job, which is what pays the bills. But then I have YouTube, which gives me a very, very tiny amount of income. And then I have my reselling that I do as well, basically my personal stuff. And every so often I'll find something from the thrift store that I flip on eBay. But yeah, so that takes up just a lot of time. And so next week I want to do as little as that as possible and just enjoy my birthday on the 24th, spend time with my daughter. My son will be at daycare, but my daughter will be home with me. So yeah, it's going to be fun, I hope, and then hopefully get to meet my new nephew. So yeah, next week's going to be crazy. I want to get as much work out of the way this week as I possibly can. But anyway, why I'm checking in is because I started reading the next James Bond book. So that was also something I wanted to do during the summer of Bond, was try to get through the next James Bond novel, which is book number 2. Which I can't even, to Live and Let Die? No, I can't. I'll put the cover up. I forget what it is at this point. I'm only 1 chapter in. It's fine. It's interesting because I'm doing it on audiobook. I signed up for, it's called like Everand now, but it's Scribd. I signed up for the free 30-day trial. And so I'm reading it that way because in August is when the James Bond collections come out on Audible. And so I want to wait to spend any money or credits until those come out. So at this point, I figure I'll just use the free trial and be done with it. But yeah, so it's weird because there's a female narrator, which is odd to me, seeing as it's a James Bond novel. So I'm intrigued to see how that's going to play out. But no real thoughts on it. I think she's done a fine job in chapter 1, but not a whole lot going on yet. So yeah, I started that yesterday, and I want to get through that. I do most of my audiobook listening while I'm driving, so haven't really driven anywhere yet, but that's the plan. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I started that. I just discovered yesterday that the next film is actually From Russia with Love, which is perfect because that means I can then, after I watch this, I can then start playing the video game, which is the other goal I hope to get through in this Summer of Bond challenge or whatever. So yeah, but anyway, I hope to watch the next film today, either this afternoon or tonight. Most likely it'll be tonight after my son goes to bed, but we will see. But anyway, just wanted to check in and let you guys know what was going on in my life. So by the next time you see me, I should be talking about From Russia with Love. All right, you can see over on the screen there, I just finished From Russia with Love. So these are my instant reactions, and this was even better than the first film, I think. So with From Russia with Love, first off, threw me off. I thought for sure we were going to get a Russian setting here, given the title of this film. I really expected where the last one was in Jamaica. It was nice and warm and, that was the setting, right? It was a Caribbean setting. I thought, oh, this is cool. They're going to go maybe a snowy setting with From Russia with Love, or just a colder setting. Not at all. They spend the vast majority of this film actually in Istanbul and not even in Russia. I don't think any of this was in Russia, actually. And so that was interesting. That was the first thing that I don't know, the first thought I had after watching this. That was crazy. But the plot on this one was really the focus, whereas in Dr. No, it was about the characters, which, I mean, makes sense, right? You are, in Dr. No, you're kind of introducing the world to the character of James Bond. Obviously, the novels were popular and people read the novels, but that was, a decade prior, right? So not everyone knows James Bond. You're going to have a much larger audience with the film. And so you were introducing this character to the world. Whereas here we know James Bond a little bit now. I think he's super cool. I'm all into him. And here you build on that in bits, but really it's more about the plot. And I thought that was interesting how it felt significantly different than the first film. That said, there are bits of this plot that first time through, I'm not 100% sure that I caught everything. Specifically, I don't really know who was the good guy throughout, who was a bad guy, because there's these spies playing double agents throughout this, and then it almost feels like they're triple agents. It was a little bit confusing on that front, but that didn't deter from my enjoyment of it at all. I really liked the characters in this. Our Bond girl is just stunning once again. At first, I didn't think I was going to enjoy this character as much as I did in Dr. No, the Bond girl, but I'm wrong. I think I liked this one even more. Just, you get so much more of her. In Dr. No, our main Bond girl is not introduced until about halfway through the film, where here, she's in right from the beginning. There are so many different things that I'd like to talk about, but it's hard to do that without getting into spoiler territory, which I don't want to do with these. But the action picks up right from the opening sequence, whereas in the original, you get this almost goofy introduction, like credit sequence and everything with that 60s disco style. Here, you get the Bond theme for seconds, and then it instantly kicks off into like an opening kill, right? An opening action moment. That was really cool how that was set up. And then it goes into the credit sequence, which was really awesome. The way they did that credit sequence, I thought that was very unique, with the Bond girl doing belly dancing, which you'll get later on in the film, and her just using like shadow play for the credits to roll over her body. I thought that was really cool. Really good way to bring the audience in. So I really enjoyed that. And then we get kind of the same setup as in Dr. No, which is something I was kind of expecting. It almost feels like episodes of a TV show where we're going to be introduced to our villain character. Bond is going to get a new mission, going to go see M, going to meet up with Miss Moneypenny, I believe her name is. And that relationship I absolutely love already. I'm only 2 films in, but I love how they've built that. It's so minor in both films. They don't have a lot of time together, but what they spend together is so awesome. It's just such a charming relationship between the two. And I have to wonder if we're going to get more of a relationship as this series goes on. You know, what will Miss Moneypenny be as the series continues? But I love that. There's a moment where Bond walks in and he does the hat throw onto the coat rack again, which I already marked out for in the first film. He does that and he goes, now for my next trick. But then he looks into the room and M is in there, his boss, and he's like, oh, just completely changed his demeanor. And that was so relatable, right? Like you're messing around, you're being a jokester, flirting with her. And then you realize, oh, my boss is here. Yeah, maybe this isn't the appropriate time. Like, it was just so funny. I loved that moment. Again, the relationship with him and Miss Moneypenny is great, and him and M is awesome as well. M and Moneypenny, such an awesome relationship there too. Later on, just the way she listens in on the conversations and how he knows about it. It's cute. It's charming. I really enjoy that. But you get the same setup. Send Bond into his office. He gets kind of a new gadget. The last one, of course, he got his PPK, I think is right. And this one, he gets this briefcase, which obviously is going to play a big role in the finale of the film. And so he gets a new gadget, and then he's sent to the airport. At the airport, somebody's following them in a car afterwards. It was very similar setup to the original film, and I imagine it's going to continue like that as we go through this series. But really, outside of that, it does feel like a significantly different film, as I've already said. I really enjoyed how the plot progressed in this. I didn't know how Bond was going to get out of some of these moments. And I thought it's also interesting that in this one, Bond isn't quite the perfect spy like he is in the original. And you have this counter, right? This Russian who is an incredible spy. He's almost this super soldier character. And he is just a significantly better spy than James Bond is in this film. And I thought that was fascinating to see that, how in only the second film, we kind of are introduced to a character who just does the job better. But of course, the ego is going to play a part with that spy, and things, are going to take a turn. But I just thought that was really interesting to see. And I loved that character and just how good he was at his job. I thought that was really cool. We're also introduced to another character, kind of I don't know his name at this point. I don't have it in front of me, but the lead that he was working with in Istanbul, I loved that character. He had all his sons working for him. I thought that was really funny how many sons he had working for him. And, as his character progresses, he's trying to be killed multiple times. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And of course, a moment comes later, which it was impactful. I liked that. I loved the sequence when he goes with the gypsies and there's that belly dancing scene, and it turns out, he has to end up picking between these two women who's going to get the man they both want. Instead of them fighting to the death, essentially, he asks them to be the one to pick because he saves the guy's life. I know I'm all over the place and being, trying to be purposely vague, but if you've seen the film, which likely if you're watching this, you probably have, and so you know what I'm talking about, but there's just a lot of really cool moments in this. This was much more of an action film than the first one too. And because of that, it didn't, even though it's a longer movie at almost 2 hours, it didn't feel as long. I did check the time at one point because we were at what I thought was the end. And then it's introduced where it's like, oh, it's not the end. I'm like, wait, how much more time is left? Well, not much at that point. It was in the last 10 minutes. And so it goes by really quickly. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I liked the characters. The villains were interesting. And one thing I'm trying to understand, it appears that we have two different villain groups with Smersh and Spectre. I don't know how they are related, but it seems to be two competing villain groups. And so I'm interested to see how that's going to continue throughout this series. I see why this film, kind of sidetracking, I see why this film was made into a video game, because boy, oh boy, this will make a great game. I can't wait to start that. I'm going to start playing that game soon because I've watched the movie now. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. I did take notes during this one as well, but I think I've hit on most everything I wanted to talk about here. This is just an enjoyable flick. There are a lot more action sequences in this. Maybe the fight choreography isn't the greatest in that gypsy scene, but at least it's an action moment, which we didn't get a ton of in the original, in Dr. No. And so I liked this one more. So I am going to give From Russia with Love, also directed by Terrence Young. It's our second one from him. I noticed that Goldfinger, which is up next, is not directed by him. So it'll be interesting to see how it differs there. But frankly, this one felt like a different director anyway. It felt like a whole different film. But I'm going to give From Russia with Love 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one as well. And I'm going to rank these as I go through. So From Russia with Love, I'm going to put at number 1, and then Dr. No at number 2. So next up is Goldfinger. Before I jump to that, though, I will mention I have been reading more of the book. I don't have it down here. I have it upstairs, but my copy that I put on hold from the library came in today. So I actually read chapter 2 and chapter 3 in the physical form. And it's interesting because there is some language in the book that is not acceptable by today's standards, and they change that in the audiobook. I'm not going to repeat the language, of course, because it's not appropriate and I don't feel like saying those words, but it's interesting how that happened. I didn't expect that, but yeah, it's intriguing. I'm not sure that I'm loving the book yet, but I like the idea that we're going with this like voodoo priest as a bad guy. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't have too much to say yet, but I did want to let you know that I am making progress. I also need to start making progress on the video game now that I've watched the movie. I can do that. So yeah, I'm loving this. This is awesome. I'm so glad I finally am watching these. So yeah, that said, let's, I'm going to watch Goldfinger next. So let's jump ahead to that. All right, so I just remembered I was in the middle of a vlog, so I figured I would share this with you guys. So let me, this sucks, but let me flip this camera around. So I didn't realize it, but this actually started, where is it? Right there. This started leaking. So my daughter was taking a shower, and we didn't realize that we didn't put the plastic back in the tub. And so because of that, it leaked all the way down. And so now I have stacks of movies here that are wet. You can see on one of these, yeah, you can, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, you can see wetness on that right there. And it's on the cover art itself, which is super annoying. And this is, yeah, way on there too. And this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have those set down there to try to dry out. And then over here, this is where it's even worse. This is row 2. And then, yeah, this is like the third, second, first. Well, this is the first row. That's the second. And so it's just going to get, you know, hopefully less. But this one I'm concerned about. So I cannot believe we did that. We ended up cleaning the bathroom, the shower, and totally forgot to put the plastic back in right before we were giving my daughter her shower. Oh, man. So this is still real wet. Oh, that's ridiculous. I was thinking about, like, with so much physical media down here, I feel like I need to reassess what I have for insurance, because I have a very standard policy that if these all get destroyed, which obviously this is not going to do that, but if something big were to happen down here, I would be out, you know, a significant amount of funds. It's nothing super valuable. It's just the sheer number of them. It makes it worth something. So, oh, I can't believe that. I will give you guys an update once I actually get everything cleared out and let you know if anything is, you know, damaged beyond repair or whatnot. But what a frustrating thing to do on a Wednesday night. Like, I just want to watch Dynamite, AEW, and relax, edit the video for tomorrow, and go to bed. Oh, I can't believe we did that.
A few moments later.
So, some of these are pretty bad. Like, for example, Argo here. This is super water damaged, so I'm going to leave that out. Hopefully that'll dry, but it's probably going to be messed up. You can see all the water on the back of August Osage County. Oh, man. Look at this. This one's already messed up really bad. That's Austin Powers. My goodness. Some of these, fortunately, like these ones, were really wet. But me having so many sealed movies in my collection really helps in a situation like this. But, yep, definitely these are messed up. This is garbage. This makes me so upset. Alright, so I've taken everything out and dried everything that needed to be dried and whatnot. So it looks like there's about 15 titles that were really affected. You can see down here, I took them out of the cases and put them on the floor, and hopefully they'll dry all right. But the good news is I got relatively lucky. There's no real big ones in here that got messed up. The biggest one is this right here, the Blade Runner 5 disc collector's edition. Frankly though, that one, and this was the bad part, the booklet got wet too. That one has been cursed since I got it. I've had issues with it. The case is destroyed. I need to buy a new case for it. Not because of the water damage, but other reasons. So I know the glare is awful. I apologize. But yeah, so that's, fortunately, there was one in here, Cinderella somewhere in here. Yeah, right here. You can see maybe it's a book, and it just missed it by about 2. It started here getting wet. So I got lucky there. The big one here, one of the more expensive titles in my collection, Godzilla vs. Biollante, or Biolante, however you say that. This one, no issues with that, fortunately. There were some other ones in here, I forget now, but yeah, those were the big ones. Like I said, fortunately, a lot of these were still sealed, And because of that, that protected them. I did have to open up one, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the remake, the Fincher remake. It was sealed, but you could tell the water was coming through it. So I had to take that apart and open it up. But yeah, these are the big ones that got messed up, or the ones that got messed up the most. Everything else was wet and I could wipe it down. So nothing terrible. You know, the most expensive to replace would be Blade Runner, but I'm just not going to replace that one no matter what. I think that'll drive fine. The case needs to be replaced. I have it on 4K anyway, but that one right there, Austin Powers trilogy, that would probably not be super expensive, maybe like $15 to buy new. But yeah, everything else is cheap. I could find at Disc Replay. Argo, I actually am probably going to end up getting rid of that because I just bought that big collector's edition that I showed. Romeo and Juliet, that's just the slipcover, so no big deal there. But yeah, so all in all, it could have been significantly worse. So it's just frustrating when you don't know the extent of the damage. And I totally understand first world problems 100%, but still frustrating regardless. So I'm happy that the vast majority is okay. So now I got to get all these back onto the shelf, which is going to be interesting. I'll do that tomorrow. I need to edit the video for tomorrow right now because it's getting relatively late. So yeah, that was unexpected and just kind of annoying. You can see I have all the cases sitting out up here, just drying out also. So yeah, anyway, let's talk about watching movies instead of destroying movies. So before we get back to reviewing movies, I want to check in again. So it's the next day and I've just been trying to put things back together. So let me show you what's going on here. All right, you can see on the floor, I have started picking things up a little bit. So I've been trying to see what the condition is, and you can tell some of these are definitely going to be wrinkled, and that's probably just how they're going to be. Fortunately, again, they're not the most expensive titles. The one that, so here's Blade Runner, if you guys remember that one. Actually, yeah, let me grab this here. So this is the original case, and it is just, it's all broken. I dropped this a long time ago. All these are all broke, so can't do it. So then I was like, well, instead of buying a 5-disc case to replace this, what is going on with the 4K edition, which is right here, the original 4K cover art's underneath. So I thought I would look at these and see what was going on. Well, it turns out there's only one original disc in here, and then it just repeats discs like 1, 3, and 4, I think, of the 5-disc set. Actually, this booklet dried quite well. You can't even really tell there was any water damage on it, which is awesome. And so what I did is I just combined these into one. So you can see now this has disc 3, which was not in the 4K set, but it has disc 1, which was, because it's part of the final cut on Blu-ray. That was, just for reference, disc 3 is the theatrical cut on Blu-ray. So now that's included here. And then it also had disc, or it didn't have, rather, disc 5, which was the work print, because this 4K edition is just the final cut. So I have the final cut on 4K, and then I have the work print, the final cut on Blu-ray also, and the theatrical cut on Blu-ray. And then this release also contained these bonus discs here as well. So you have the one I really want to watch. It's called Dangerous Days, The Making of Blade Runner. And it had the enhancement archive, so just bonus features. So this was already included. So I just got one of my double-sided sleeves here, and I stuck that in with this, because these hold 2 each. That's how it was made to do. When you buy it, it has 2 on each spindle, which is fine. The 4K disc is at the bottom, because obviously those are much more vulnerable to scratching. So this is just going to go in here, and I just stuck, because there's not a clear inside, unfortunately, I just ended up sticking the collector's edition on the top, the cover art. So this one I am actually going to try to fix, I guess. But yeah, so there's that. I wish there was a slipcover on this. This would look awesome. But anyway, this one here, Hot Tub Time Machine, it didn't look good either. You can see kind of on the back there, it's messed up a bit. There's nothing I'll be able to do about that. And then Expendables, which is also another customization, or shout out to Huck, a Huckstomization. I turned the both 1-disc sets into this 2-disc set because this has the extended director's cut. And you can see what I did here on the back has the original cover art, and then on the front has the extended director's cut cover art. So anyway, that said, those are the 3 I'm going to work on, and these are ones I'm going to work on as well. And then I got to go through the rest. Argo is arguably the worst in terms of how it dried. It looks awful. But I was reading, I Googled how to get wrinkles out of a poster, which is essentially what these are. Oh boy, now they're stuck together for some reason. That's fun. And so what I discovered is that you can take an iron, take a piece of towel, a piece of cloth or a towel over it, get it slightly damp, and then take an iron and iron it out. So I don't have an iron right now, and so my mom's actually coming to stay the night tomorrow for unrelated reasons, but I asked her to bring an iron with her. So she will do that, and I will try to get these flatter than they are. When I posted this on Instagram last night, that's what Mike over at Movie Edge mentioned, is that he actually had a house fire, and the water damage that was done ended up making his cover arts like this, and he wasn't able to fix that. So I'm going to try that. I don't have high hopes. Worst case scenario, Argo I'll probably be selling anyway. These 2, not a big deal. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So yeah, I just wanted to check in to let you guys know where things stood right now. That's what's going on. So I'll let you know if the iron trick works, assuming I'm still filming the vlog when I actually get around to doing that. Alright, this is a totally random part of this, but I just want this documented in something. So I have been fighting, obviously, with my hair for 15 plus years now, and I finally made the choice that tonight I'm shaving it off. So I'm going bald up top here. So I'm gonna do that, and so I just want you guys to be aware I'm gonna look a whole lot different. I'm sure I am super nervous, but I'm just tired of the stress of dealing with it because it is so frustrating to me, the whole thing. So I decided, you know what, it's time to just go for it. My thought is that after about 3 days, it'll be totally normal to me. So I have my wife's gonna help, but I have my bald buddy here that I just picked up, so hopefully this thing works. And yeah, the other thing is we're trying to do this very quickly because we are going to go see Twisters in about half hour. So I need to be doing this fast. So yeah, let's see how this all turns out. One last shot of me here before it's all gone. But you can see it's bad. It's just bad. So let's get rid of it. This is nerve-wracking. And here we are. I'm actually quite surprised by how it looks. I think it looks a lot better than I was expecting. So hopefully you guys won't unsubscribe, but we'll see. But yeah, that's it. Finally, I have been contemplating doing this forever. My daughter wanted to be in the video, so there we are. Do you like it, babe? Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. So I've been contemplating doing this forever. It feels good just to get it done. We're going to my sister's tomorrow because it's her birthday today and my birthday on Wednesday. So going to her house tomorrow. I haven't told her I'm doing this, and I've been talking about it for years. She was sure I was never going to do it, but here we are. So I cannot wait to show up tomorrow with my head like this. So yeah, anyway, we are going to be running late. We have to go see Twister, so I'm going to check out now. Welcome back to my normal filming location. I want to wrap up everything here. This is the first time I'm using my full lights and everything. Actually, you're on my action cam, but you are on the tripod right now because I have a lot of things to hold up and share with you guys. But anyway, it's the first time I'm filming without my hair here, so it's a whole new experience. I can't wait till I can actually see what I look like on this. But anyway, so before I start, because I watched Goldfinger last night, so before I talk about that though, I do want to mention, I went to this super random shop that actually is right by my house. I was watching this video about all the comic shops in Michigan, and one of them is literally like 10 minutes away, not even, and that I'd never been to. Half of it is comic books, but the other half is pro wrestling, which if you guys know me, you know that I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. So, of course, I had to go check it out. not only do they have that, but they also happen to have some VHS tapes when me and my daughter went. And one of them that I found happened to be From Russia with Love. So you guys know I was picking that one up. This was such a cool find after watching it, I don't know, a couple days before running across this. So that was awesome to see. This was $5, I think, so not a bad deal at all. I would like to collect these on VHS as I go through them. So I have to find, you know, Dr. No and Goldfinger now, but I'll find those with no issue. But yeah, so I had to grab this one. This was just a cool one. I'll show this in another haul video, but if you guys made it this far, you get to see something that I picked up. So I grabbed From Russia with Love. So yeah, really cool. Excited to revisit that at some point on VHS. But yeah, so I've actually done a couple things. I finished Goldfinger, but I also finished reading Live and Let Die. So let me start with kind of a mini review of this, I guess. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this was the second James Bond book that I read. Of course, it's the second Ian Fleming novel. And this one was it's good. I don't think I enjoyed this one quite as much as I liked Casino Royale. But this one is much more of an adventure book, rather an adventure story, I guess, more so even than Casino Royale, which takes place, from what I remember, it's been a couple years now, but more of one location, one area, I guess. This one, you start off in New York, and then you go to Florida, and then finally it wraps up in Jamaica. There's like shark repellent in this. I kept thinking about Batman with the shark repellent, which maybe that's where that stemmed from. I have no idea, so I thought that was interesting. But Mr. Big is our main villain in this one, and he is basically this like Haitian voodoo priest. They call him a zombie throughout the book. That's what his followers look at him as a zombie of these, I forget exactly who it is, but kind of revered people, essentially, from Haiti. And he uses, you know, his witchcraft and his lies, essentially, to keep people in check, and that's how he runs things. He is trying to remember the exact plot here. Basically, they're trying to figure out where these gold coins, there's something special about these gold coins, where they came from. And of course, they're going to trace it back to Mr. Big, which eventually will lead back to Jamaica and so on and so forth. So yeah, this was an interesting one. I liked our Bond girl in this, who is called Solitaire. Just an awesome name. You get some great names for this. Of course, I'm going to be talking about Goldfinger soon and talking about just ridiculous names, but they're so perfect. And so Solitaire is in this one. And first off, can you guys even see that cover? Like, it is very provocative. They did a reprint of these, and I was at Barnes & Noble yesterday checking them out, and I do want to collect them as I go in the new reprint. These are great, but these are really hard to find. So finding a full line of this will be very difficult in this print. I will say this does keep, as far as I can tell, the original text intact a little bit more than maybe the reprints do. There is language in here that is definitely not okay to use. And so, you know, do I need my title of a chapter to be racist? Is that going to change my experience? No, I don't. And so I think I'll just stick with the easier to find reprints that they've released recently. So anyway, the action on this is a lot of fun. I liked our, I forget his name right now, but the partner of James Bond in this one was really cool too. And kind of his fate and how things work with him was really interesting to see play out. So I think this is an enjoyable book. I had a good time with it. I did read a little bit in the physical form. I rented this one from my library, but I mostly did the audiobook, as I mentioned earlier in this video. And I think the audiobook narrator, they had a female as the narrator, which you think James Bond, should you have a female narrator? Frankly, a female sounding narrator. I guess I have no idea what their gender is, but it was a female sounding narrator. And so I thought initially it's like, does that work for James Bond? But where it really does work is with Solitaire, with the female characters in this. I think it works really well. They're portrayed more accurately, I guess I would say. And so I did like it for that. And I thought she did, or they did. I have no idea. Again, I have no idea, what their gender is, but I thought they did a great job with what they were given here with this book. So I think the audiobook is definitely a way to go. But anyway, Live and Let Die, I will give 3.5 stars as well out of 5. I think that's what I gave Casino Royale also. So I will definitely want to continue these as I go. But yeah, really good book. So I'm happy I read that. That said, let's shift over now to our final film for this vlog. And I'm not going to hold this up, but yeah, this is Goldfinger. So Guy Hamilton, that's who directed Goldfinger, and he will go on to do a few more James Bond films, it looks like. But with Goldfinger, this is such an iconic film, and I had no idea going into it. Of course, I knew that we were going to get the titular Goldfinger, who is a great Bond villain, a super intelligent villain as well. His master plan to carry out against Fort Knox is brilliant. Like, it is so well thought out. It is very interesting to see how that one plays out. I think of all the films I've watched so far, his planning is the best. His idea is the coolest. And so that was really interesting. Of course, he's iconic, but then you get probably the most infamous Bond girl of all time with Pussy Galore, which is the most absurd name on the planet, but the way she is introduced is so amazing. James Bond wakes up in the plane and says, "Who are you?" Because she's obviously this beautiful woman, and she says her name is Pussy Galore, and the smirk on his face when he says, "I must be dreaming," was just perfection. It was utterly perfect. I loved that moment so much. The one thing I didn't understand is why that name? Was that word not slang in the same way that it is today? But the way he replies to her name, I really feel like it has to have been. So that was so weird. Maybe that's something that'll get cleared up in the book once I get around to it. But that was hilarious to see that moment. So in addition to that, you get one of the most iconic villains ever, at least in my opinion, because I hated this character when my best friend always played with him in GoldenEye. But you get Oddjob. Oddjob is amazing. So first off, his look, right, was always so infamous, just again from the N64 game GoldenEye. But seeing him in this film, he's a lot more intimidating looking than I expected him to be. And his hat, his killer hat, that whole thing is just so damn cool. I loved that. Literally a killer hat. Awesome. Such an amazing character. And so those three characters alone are just, they're so famous. And I didn't even realize that all three of them were in this same film. So that was really cool to see. But I loved this one. I thought this is such a well-plotted, well-paced James Bond film. In that we start off, we get an action sequence at the beginning, kind of like we did with From Russia with Love. But it's actually James Bond in the action sequence on this one, which was really cool. And then we get to our opening title card, which is always kind of an event with these films, it seems. And I loved this, this beautiful woman painted gold, which of course is going to play a role later on in the film. Such an awesome thing. As the music was playing, I was thinking, man, this is good, but I don't love the vocals. However, as the film progressed and they used that Goldfinger theme more, I loved it. I think it's probably my favorite theme so far, outside, of course, of the original James Bond theme, but they just use it so intelligently in this film that it just works so well. The women in the James Bond films never disappoint. It's amazing how many beautifully attractive women they're able to find for these films. It is so cool to see every time. And just the way James Bond interacts with them, it's literally within minutes he's making out with them. And then usually that same night, he's in bed with them. I thought it was very interesting to see how Bond notes that one of his shortcomings is women. And so that, of course, will play a factor as the film progresses, but not in the way I was thinking it would, where he has to make a choice one way or the other, and then that's going to impact it. He makes a choice, and it does impact it, but not quite the way I expected. Like, thank God James Bond is as good in bed as he is, because he's able to save the world. So good for him. Like, it's just insane how things progress with him. This movie is very much of its time. Frankly, all these James Bond films are very much of its era, especially when you get to reading the books, which are from the 50s. You get in the beginning here, at one point, James Bond is with this woman and he sends her away saying, oh, men talk, and he smacks her on the butt. It's like, okay, that's again, very much of its time, which I don't have any issues with. It's just that it's a different era. It is what it is. But some other things I really loved with this one is just how needlessly theatric Goldfinger's house is, where he has all these people over, and of course he's going to unveil his master plan to rob Fort Knox to devalue the cost of gold. Like, that was just fascinating to see. And then all these moving pieces, these people are freaking out like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? That you can tell they're ad-libbing, and it's just hilarious to listen to. But that was so cool. It was so needless, but man, it was fun to watch. I love how James Bond is able to outsmart these villains, which again, they're just nameless villains. And so that works well. And then later on, you see, instead of just having one guy watch him on the outside, instead now they have 4 guys on the inside with guns pointed directly at him. It was hilarious to watch the progression of keeping James Bond locked up. The other thing I thought was really fascinating about this one was, frankly, how little James Bond does in this in order to kind of prevent the situation from happening, right? He is locked up. And the people that are watching him, he has this GPS tracker, the people that are watching him, they think, oh, he's got everything under control. And they kind of stick with that narrative throughout the film until eventually, you know, obviously the climax is going to happen. But he does very little. He doesn't know what's going on. But then, of course, as I mentioned, he's able to, you know, get this person in bed, and that's going to change the trajectory of things. But I just thought it was so fascinating how he wasn't very active in this, where in the first 2 films, he has been very active. And of course, in both novels I've read, he's been very active. The other thing I love was the introduction of the Aston Martin, another infamous vehicle from the James Bond films, of course. And the oil slick moment was really fun to see. The car hits the oil slick, goes off a mountain, and just explodes into this giant fireball, which was so unrealistic, but so cool to see. And then you get the button, right? You pop open the gear shift, you press the button, the roof comes off, and the passenger is expelled from the car. Like, of course they're going to use that in the film, and it was just as cool as I was hoping it was gonna be. Just such a fun moment. This is a very iconic James Bond film, and now I know that, and I'm so appreciative that I've seen this movie. I love this one. So I think I'll leave it there, but I am definitely giving Goldfinger 4 out of 5 stars. Another one, all 3 of these got 4 stars, I think, but I am going to put Goldfinger at the top of my ranking order, followed by From Russia with Love, and I'll put Dr. No at number 3, but all really good films. I enjoyed my time with all 3 of them, and can't wait for the summer of Bond to continue. I actually started playing a little bit of GoldenEye again. I am still stuck on that stupid train sequence that I just can't get past, but eventually I will play. I don't have it next to me. Eventually I'll play From Russia with Love, but I'll save that for the next vlog. Books, 3 movies, bought a VHS tape. This has been I shaved my head. My nephew was born during this vlog. This was one of the more productive vlogs I've had in a very long time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. You know, hopefully, you know, as long as this one gets enough views and people care enough, then I will vlog the next 3 films as I go through them, because I've had a great time with this. The next vlog won't be nearly as exciting, but hopefully it'll be interesting to hear my thoughts on the next 3 James Bond films regardless. But that's going to do it, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. So if you stuck with me to the end of this probably very long vlog, I really do appreciate you. It means so much to me that you guys are here. So thank you for that. But let me know down in the comments below, what is your ranking order of the first 3 James Bond films? Again, mine would be Goldfinger, From Russia with Love, and then Dr. No, but I liked all 3 of them. They were all such a good time. But I do think this is a rare series where it's getting better as it goes on. Something I didn't even mention is that relationship with Moneypenny. She did the gag where she threw the hat onto the coat rack and it stuck. Oh, I lost my mind. I marked out so hard for that. I loved it. Their relationship, I hope, expands as this series continues, because I love them together. But even though they're such small scenes, I think they do such a great job. But anyway, with that said, guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this and anything else down in the comments below. This has been a ton of fun, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. If you don't mind, before you go, if you could just hit that like button, that engagement really does help me out. But with that said, guys, thank you so much again for being here. This was a long one, so I appreciate you making it to this point. But with that said, I'll encourage you all before you go to consume some media today. Maybe, just maybe, some James Bond media. I would highly recommend it because it's a great time. But that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all next time.